Hello again. This week we are moving into talking about more of the social theories of aging. Really, the first part of this lecture is leading up to our discussion about ageism as a social theory of aging and how that fits in. It's kind of a foundation for understanding the way that we view aging in society and how it then actually functions, not just how we view it, but then the results of that, how it functions. So some of these theories are ones that you will recognize probably from your Intro to Gerontology course. If you're taking it subsequently, you're getting this twice, but this is just a review of the social foundations in aging, really to help connect you to how we view aging, how individuals, peers, and society all meld together to affect the experience of aging in the US at least, and globally as well. Okay, so let's start off here. One of the first things that we need to talk about is the life course perspective of aging. So this is what this course is going to take on as a life course perspective. And this is in direct contrast to just discrete stages, like, oh, now you're only this age and we look at you for only this period of time. And then we interpret you for only this period of time, middle childhood, and then adolescence, and then we look post-adolescence and young adulthood, and all of those stages that we describe, they're relevant certainly as stages, but aging isn't an isolated thing. It's not something that you can just chunk and take out and put over here and take away from all of those other stages. And that's really what the life course stage is. So we tend to think of old age as this stage at the end of life that is sort of disengaged with everything else. But really the important thing to consider here is that age is affected by all of those other stages, who we are when we were younger, who we are when we were emerging adults, who we are when we were middle adults, and those experiences that we had. And not just, we're not just a product of all of those experiences across our stages, but we're also a product of how our social systems have shaped us over time, right? So again, it's that idea that there's, an ecological theory, socioecological theory, there's us in the middle, then outside is family and peers, and then outside that is the systems close to us, and then outside that is the macro system, the big institutions like healthcare and government, and all of those things shape who we are, not just at one point in time, but across the lifespan to then result in this aging individual. So the idea of studying aging is not studying someone in isolation in just this stage of life. It's looking at all of those influences over time and how those affect the current experience of that person in an aging stage. Okay. So then we want to look at this different theories that you have read about. So in the readings that I gave you, section 13.4, they go over some of the more common theories we use to explain aging. Some of these are older, antiquated theories. Some of them we still have bits and pieces of, and not one of them is fully comprehensive to say this describes everything in aging, right? So if you ever find a theory that's fully comprehensive that explains everything about a concept, just let me know, because I don't think there is one out there, but we put pieces of these together to make sense of an experience like aging. So with that, we'll start with the functionalist theories, or functionalism. So functionalists argue that age performs a specific function in society, hence functionalism. And one of the main theories in functionalism is disengagement theory. This is one of the early ones. This theory suggests that older adults, as you age and you become more limited and have more functional limitations, you disengage from society and society disengages from you. It's this mutual disengagement of society and the older person, and it's functional. in that it helps both the older person feel less like they have to conform to all these social norms that society was pressing on them, and also society gets freed from having to support the older adult's new norms. So it's a sort of natural or functional relationship that they withdraw from society. So I hope this rubs you the wrong way, because it's not something we generally accept as a good theory of aging. There are parts of it that make sense. Certainly there is some social withdrawal from different types of societal institutions. But we're not really separating ourselves in older age. In fact, I think that's a concept that we need to do the reverse of. Instead of separating, we need to engage more with older adults. So the disengagement theory is a little bit antiquated here. It suggests, again, that older age is this distinct stage out here that's totally different and unconnected. And that, again, is not something that is a very modern accepted theory. So some criticisms obviously are also that not all older adults naturally withdraw from society either. And that may happen, and it may be related to the limit of your functionality or your retirement or something like that. But a lot of times, instead of disengaging, we just re-engage in different ways. All right, so when we look at another functionalist theory, which is a little bit updated, is activity theory. You may remember this one. This is basically stating that the more active you are, the more satisfied, likely you are to be satisfied with your life. So the more active you are with social involvement, with your peers, active with society in and of itself, the more happy or well off you will be. So activity is sort of the solution to our well-being as we age. It also, it does have some limitations. So certainly people continue to be active in their roles in life, and if those roles may switch, they will find maybe substitutes for their lost activities. But this theory definitely has a little bit of the next in it, that we tend to engage in activities that are similar to the ones we've engaged in across our life. But the problem with activity theory, I think, is that people see it as too basic or too limited, in that not everyone finds fulfillment in activities. In being active socially, there is an important component of being a social being. However, we also have an internal life. I know, whether it's meditation or spirituality or things like that, that wouldn't necessarily fit in the activity theory proposal. Also, it doesn't take into account the fact that not everybody has the opportunity to be active and engage and have all these activities and social involvement. That can be limited by our own personal selves, by some of the limitations that we have, but it's also limited by social opportunities. So some people don't have the ability to, go to community centers and go to the opera and get to the museum and be able to get into that exercise group, because some people have a much more limited social opportunities because of who they are and because of the environments that they've grown up in and that they've landed in that part of life. Another functionalist theory is very similar. It's continuity theory. They're related. So this theory would suggest that when we think about aging, we think about growing older, we're inclined to maintain our habits that we used to have. Our personality stays largely the same. Our style of life that we developed earlier, we want to continue doing these things. And it's sort of an offshoot of that activity theory as well. We continue in those things that we've been doing. So whether it's relationships or different types of activities or our personalities, we we keep doing those things. And a criticism, again, is this emphasis on activity and doing and being, and that somehow we're not taking into account people who have life-altering diseases. So when we think about people with Alzheimer's, dementia, difficult to maintain your habits when you have some limitations in that case. So we really fail, again, to account for very different physical, cognitive, and mental health experiences in the aging population with these theories. There is some support for things like functional theories like continuity and activity theory, in that, right, the more active we are, the better mental health we tend to have, the better cognitive health we tend to have, the better physical health we tend to have. So that includes exercise, that includes social interaction. Those things definitely produce well-being in older age. However, there's not the only things that produce well-being. And again, short on accounting for the limits of your ability to engage in some of those things. And the basic fact here is that just because you can't engage in things doesn't mean that you're not going to have well-being. It just means that you will get there at a different pathway. Okay. In the critical perspective theory, so we're taking a step away from functionalism and looking at a more critical perspective, a social critical perspective, we have some theories that, again, will probably be familiar to you. Modernization theory states that we can explain the current experience of aging by just looking at the impact that industrialism and modernization has had on older adults. So pre-industrial revolution, we had a lot of agrarian societies, very much familial communities. People all lived in the same places. Extended families lived together, multi-generational homes. But as we continued to become more modern and industrialized, families began to disperse, we become more mobile, we become more advanced, and we put an emphasis less on the value and respect we have for wisdom and aging, and more on advancement and productivity and things that tend to maybe lessen or at least change as we age. So older age has been devalued in modernization theory. So as societies modernize, older adults, aren't able to work. They're able to work less. They are seen economically as a burden. And there's definitely some support for this theory, right? That where a view of aging and older individuals has certainly shifted with our modernization and technological advances. And this sort of has this flavor of ageism in there, right? That we see them as a burden and we see them differently. However, it's not all cut and dry. It isn't all we've shunned the older adults because they are an economic burden. There is an ambivalence about our view of aging. We have both, we see it both resenting them for their burden and feeling guilty for resenting them and wanting to support them. We have both of those at the same time. Well, then, as a result, we treat older adults with both honor and disrespect or oppression. All of those things are mixed up together because it's not as if we have completely gotten rid of the fact that older adults need to be respected as people, but it is tempered by these values that are along with a modern society that say they don't really fit or belong. So we have a big ambivalence about aging. All right, we have another critical perspective here, the age stratification theory. This is a precursor to ageism as well here. And basically the age stratification theorists have said, well, your position in society and as an individual in the small social structures that you have is based on groupings. And in this case, your age your age, how we have decided to break up age and stratify age. And older age, right, is one of those groups. And we have decided that in the hierarchy of age groups is pretty much at the bottom of the totem pole, right, or the bottom. And this will affect people's attitudes towards you, your attitudes towards yourself, how people treat you, and how society as a whole views and treats older adults. So you can really see these precursors of ageism coming in here. And with age stratification theory, older adults really do lose out on the age hierarchy, and ultimately this is going to result in some tangible resource loss for society, because for the older adult, because society really is a gatekeeper to these tangible resources. So how they view us and how they view older adults is going to affect what resources are allocated. So just think about healthcare dollars and things like educational resources and, you know, public health resources and those types of things, and where they go based on this age hierarchy that we have in society. So this is age stratification, and it has some critical people, or criticisms, I should say, as a critical perspective. One of them is that it's not just age, right? So there are multiple minority statuses that affect how you're seen in the hierarchy of society. And we can't just stop at age, but we need to think about older women, older ethnic and racial minorities, older LGBT individuals, those intersections of multiple minorities that are going to affect you even more so when we look at where people are in society in terms of hierarchy. You know, it's not just about age that is there, but it's also about those other statuses that we hold. All right, so the symbolic interactionism theory that I'd like to highlight out of the ones that you've read is the selective optimization with compensation theory. So this is definitely one that we've talked about before in intro, but to refresh your memories, this was by Baltus, and in the early 90s proposed that in a set of theories that say it's really your experience of aging and how you view aging is really broken down into these separate social interactions, and how we have a sort of conglomeration of these social interactions over time, and interactions with ourselves and others. In the selective optimization with compensation theory, they're looking at age and saying, as an older adult, we may see our energy, our physical health, our cognitive health, our mental health diminish in some ways as we age. But what we do with that is that instead of withdrawing or, you know, deciding, well, I guess I'm not productive in society, so I'm not active, so, you know, therefore I'm not worthy, like the activity theory may suggest, we have said, well, wait, how can I replace this or remain active in ways that are consistent with my own goals? So the older adult will select personal goals that help them get the most for their effort that they put into their activities in life. And this way you can make up for that loss of those wider goals that you used to have, maybe such as working full-time. So if you are no longer able to work full-time due to some of the diminished capacities that you experience during aging, you select personal goals that help you get the most out of your activities in that area. So you may no longer work, but you may decide, well, I can volunteer in this area, and therefore select personal goals that help me optimize my activities or energy, but compensate for the loss of my full-time work productivity. So that's just an example. But that's really how we go about aging well, or navigating aging, is that we reselect these types of goals that help us optimize our activities and compensate for some of the losses that we may be experiencing. All right, so that's really a rundown of some of the theories that we have of aging, the social theories we have of aging, and kind of leading us and pushing us towards this next lecture on the beginning lecture for ageism, which is, again, another main theory, social theory of aging that we will use as a bit of a lens to understand the aging process through this class. So what we know about aging and as a life course perspective is that there are many theories out there and there are many different realities of aging. So finding a theory that fits everything is very hard, but finding a theory that can explain some of the social aspects of aging, definitely we have some more modern theories out there that help us to see that, and particularly things like the modernization theory, selective optimization with compensation, and even activity theory, and of course ageism help us to understand that social experience of aging. And the older adult is definitely another bottom line of these social theories in the life course theory is that the older adult is the aging experience is a product of many different levels, right? So it's not just about you versus society, but it's you, the people that you've surrounded yourself with, the experiences that you've carried with you throughout life, the social environments you've been put in, all of those things work together to shape your experience of aging and your what you may perceive as your own individual experience is like a summation of all of these things together. And we see ageism in a lot of these theories, so some of them direct precursors like the age stratification theory, but ageism really is one of the sort of umbrella theories that we have to understand the experience of aging. And then some of the controversies in aging and the things that we come up with as professionals and try to deal with as we work with older adults to optimize their well-being. And we will really use ageism as kind of a lens in this class, in particular through the text, the Aging Manifesto, This Chair Rocks, to look at how different aspects of aging are affected by ageism. So next lecture, I'll be introducing ageism, and that will coincide with the introduction to This Chair Rocks. Definitely read that, and we'll start it up next time. Bye.